Yep, this is my first time trying this out, so I'm trying to figure out how to get to the streaming dashboard. Like, I'm trying to see where I can get to the live chat. Hmm. Let me see. Now, is there a way for me to see this on YouTube? Okay, yeah, I think it's working. So I guess right now, just while I'm waiting for people to join, I'm going to create the project. I'll talk more about it. I'll talk more about it later. Yeah, I know this is kind of a bad time to stream, but I really feel like coding. I guess this is the time that a lot of people like to code. It's 3 a.m. for me. So what I'm thinking about doing is creating a multiplayer tic-tac-toe game. This is a little bit more difficult than you might think because we need to figure out how to separate both the server and the client and figure out how to handle reconnection, how to create lobbies, how to handle cheating in a tic-tac-toe game, which in a server client architecture can be a little bit tricky. But the main idea is the server is going to hold the source of truth for the game, and we need to find a way to relay that source of truth back to the clients. I guess we can just start off with trying to separate the concerns. In the README, we do want the server and the client separated. Now, the way that the server and the client are going to communicate, I mean, we can just use like a WebSocket. I mean, the server needs an API, so I'm thinking of just using like fast API for the server side, and then the client can just hook into that web server. Now, the server is going to need a few endpoints. I'm not sure exactly what it would be, but I guess a client would need a way to create a server. They will need a way to join game, and I think I'll name these a little bit better. I'll name these a little bit better later. But creating a server, joining a game. I think once you're in a game, there needs to be a way to make a move. On the server, we're going to also need a way to relay back to the client if the move was valid or not. So this could return a bunch of different response shapes as well. Um, yeah, and this is where like I guess AI has kind of taken a toll on me because this kind of server client architecture used to be kind of easy to understand for me, but since I haven't worked with it for a while, it's actually kind of a lot of mental effort to even think about how to create this from scratch, which is I guess just what I'm practicing today. You know, before we even get into the server client architecture, I guess we can just start with game logic. And create a core file, which we can store some of the models here. And I guess it would be nice to create these models directly with Pydantic so we can serialize and deserialize as we go. I think we'll need to install that. So now I'm thinking, I think I actually should use AI just so I don't have to search through Stack Overflow, which is kind of it's better than just using AI to create the entire project, but I don't know. It's kind of going against the title, right? Should I just code like how we used to back in like 2022? So like creating tic-tac-toe normally in like a synchronous workflow is super easy. You know, the game loop is just player one makes a move. You check the board to see if there's a winner. If not, player two makes a move. And it's a super simple game loop. But with the server client architecture, we need to think of it in an asynchronous way because both players could make moves whenever they wanted, but the server would just have to respond with, sorry, or that move is invalid, right? So it's a little bit more tricky when you're trying to make a tic-tac-toe game with the server client architecture. Hey Ash, yeah, I'm currently just on YouTube. I think eventually I may move to Twitch or some other platforms, but yeah, for this video, I just felt the urge to just stream. I think I've been, I don't know, having issues getting motivated to just make videos. So this is kind of just like a spur of the moment. Let's just stream and, you know, do some raw coding like we used to back a few years ago without AI. Creating a tic-tac-toe game. It's going to be multiplayer, or hopefully it's going to be multiplayer. I don't think I'm going to get it done in this stream, but we're going to work on, or I'm just going to kind of detail how I go through this, how I solve problems and get some information from you guys, or get some help from you guys as well. But I guess, yeah, we're just going to start off simple with the game logic. So actually, yeah, we're not even going to think about models right now. I think we just start with, you know, just create some functions that allow us to, you know, interact with like a tic-tac-toe board. And you know, maybe it actually might help us to do it here. We'll create a board. For the initializer, I don't think there really needs to be anything unless we wanted to create a board that already has slots filled in. But I guess for now, we really don't need that. We can just keep it empty for now. I think we'll want... I think I should focus on typing as well, just to make this a little bit easier to think about. So the board is going to be a two-dimensional array of integers, and I think the best thing for this would be like a enum, right? You would have like an XO or a none piece, but I think integer is fine for now. We can change it later if we need to. It's going to just be 0, 1, or 2. Should be fine. You know what, let's just make it string then. It's got to either be empty string, X, or no. We'll set it to none, actually. Actually, it can't be none. It has to actually exist. So how do you do that? I think it's just create empty for now. Maybe you don't need it at all. Oh, you don't need it at all. So how are we gonna initialize this? For an empty board, you just use list comprehension for this. And then we'll create just a space. Yeah, so this should give us an empty board. We may want a way to also check for solution, and this is where like maybe actually a class wouldn't be the best way to model this, right? Maybe we just have a board and then we just have functions that check if there's a winner. Like this doesn't really need to be like part of the class. This could be a static method, I think, which I'm not sure what. Oh yeah, actually, you don't need to import anything. I'll check winner. I'll take in a board. Again, I may be like repeating this over and over, which I don't even know if this is really a good idea. You know, I really don't want to overthink it as well. It's just better to just get it. Yeah, so I don't want to get too much into like the Python syntax because it's not really going to be a tutorial, but self is just referring to the instance member of the class. So each board is going to have its own, or each board class is going to have an instance member board, and I'm referencing it here, or basically initializing it here in this constructor. So this is going to get called when I create a board. So I need something like board. This here will call the initializer and create an empty tic-tac-toe board with all just empty spaces for now. I think I may be over engineering this a little too much. I'm actually gonna keep it simple and just have a game for now. Let's think how we can model the board in a better way. So check winner should return a string. It's either gonna be X, O, or the empty string if there is no winner. I'm not gonna worry about making this an enum right now, but this should be fairly straightforward if you think about it. So it's a two-dimensional array. So there's no array math that we have to do to actually get the rows or the columns. We can just say for row. You know what? We'll not pass in a board. We'll just use self and not make this a static method. So if we check through all the rows in the board, if they are all the same, so each row, if they're all the same, then we have a winner. But only if they're not spaces. So I think there could be a trick that we could use to do this. If we if we create a set of the row, we can then say how many unique elements are in the row. So if this is equal to 1, let's see, then that means they're all the same. And but we also have to then check if it's a space or not. How long have I been coding for? I would say maybe since like 2018. It's been 8 years already. Don't worry about feeling like you're falling behind. if you love the game, if you love coding, it'll come naturally. But actually I shouldn't say naturally, because it actually does take some kind of structured studying. But if you want to excel, you just gotta, maybe you can just stick around, listen to me code, and maybe code for yourself as well. So now that we know they're all the same, we can just check that if the row at index 0 is not a space, then we know we have a winner here in one of those rows. So yeah, if it's not a space, we'll just say that we can just return that row and index 0. That's the winner. Now we have to do the columns, which again is not super difficult. You just have to build them up. So we'll go through the three different columns, and I is going to be the index of the column we're checking. So you can imagine the board being something like this. Let me just use something like this for now. So this is going to be the index here for the row, or I is going to go through each of these rows here. So at first I is 0, we want to check if this column has all the same elements. So it's very similar to this, except we just don't have that convenience of just having that already, in an array for us like we do here. Let's see if there's a little trick we can do with this. If we can do the same thing where we find the length of the set of, but we just don't have something nice here that we can put for the row instead of row. This has to be like column instead, but how do we build up the column is the question now. So the column is just going to be, and this is over engineering. Like I could just hard code the indices, but why not practice just a little bit, right? We can build this up with a list comprehension, or using list comprehension. It doesn't need to be a list, it can just be a tuple. So we'll have to iterate through the rows. We'll actually say row index I for each row in the board. Okay. And I think that should be good. So if the length of this is 1, that means we know that they're all the same. Then again, it's basically the same thing here. That if it's not a use column. Type generator. Right, okay. So this is a generator. We'll have to turn this into a list here, which again, it's not really memory efficient, but it's fine. So now that we check the rows, we'll check the columns. Now we just have to check the diagonals and we'll be okay. This one, there's just only 2 diagonals that we have to worry about, so we can just hard code this. You know what? Let's just be a little smart about this too. Okay, so this is index 0, 0, this is 1, 1, this is 2, 2. So why don't we just say like for we'll look at the board. We'll build basically building up the diagonal, and I think we could do this in all this comprehension again. So let's create that. Diagonal 1 is just the board at index II, which is basically the same thing. Could we check rows in chunks of 3 or column in steps of 3 or diagonals in steps of 3 plus incrementer? I'm not sure what you mean by that, but you're saying something like if we, oh yeah, sorry. If we flatten the board, we could check rows in chunks of 3 or column in steps of 3. Yeah, that'll work. So basically, yeah, I know what you're saying. If this was all just one line of 9 elements, then we can just increment by 3 because that's the row length, right? But then there is some math that we have to do. It's better, like it's better to do it that way. It's more memory efficient, but really, like, implementation doesn't matter as much as what I would say is the contract of the class. So, you know, check winner, you know, the fact that it returns like the piece, I think is a better, it's more important to have the contract correct versus implementation. If you're studying for technical interview, I think, yeah, you'll want to know like the little micro optimizations to get you know, to get your program running very well. And also, this isn't really readable, but you know, you can imagine if you wanted to expand this into a larger tic-tac-toe grid, maybe like 4x4 or 5x5, you know, this does scale a little bit better than hard coding it. So you can think of it like that. And yeah, this is, I am a little bit rusty at coding, so I don't think I can give the best advice right now. It's also really, it's 3 AM for me. Okay, so for diagonal number 1, and let me see if I can get this chat pulled up closer to my board so I can see closer to me. Okay, should be good. I think I'll be able to see it if a message comes in. So again, it's the same thing. If they're all the same, or if they're all the same, then it'll have a length of 1 because it's basically, this gets rid of all duplicate, or this set kind of, it'll make sure that all the elements are unique, and then you can use the length method on it to get the length of the set. So how many, basically it's just saying how many unique elements are there in diagonal 1. If there's only 1, that means they're all the same, but again, they could be a space. In that case, there still isn't a winner. So you want to also check that it's 1, and you want to check that it's not a space. And if it's not a space, then it's either an X or an O, and they're all the same. That means you won, and you'll just return it. Diagonal 2 is a little bit weird. There's a little bit of math for this one. You can see later. Yeah, Rubik's Cube solvers are a little bit tricky. So the one implementation you could use is called a meet in the middle algorithm, where you'll do a, I think it might actually be a breadth first search. Yeah. So the breadth first search, you would do the search from both the solved state and the scrambled state, and then you would meet in the middle to see where they they both meet. And then once you meet in the middle, you have that path from the solved or from the scramble to the solved position. That's actually, let me see. I actually have, are you a speed cuber by chance? Find it. Because I used to speed cube, so I try to make one myself, but my green screen is cutting it out. This is I forget, it's a Moyu Wei Long. I'm not that fast. Yeah, that's good. So you know, you might say you're behind your peers, but you know, don't worry about it. Like, don't worry about it. Keep programming. I think if you have that drive, like you'll eventually surpass all of your peers who don't really like to program. That's just a fact. So yeah, just keep going. And then at the end, we can just say return nothing if there is no winner. So I think this handles all the cases, and I think we can also check for. Let's see. We'll also write some testing for this as well. So this is actually a pretty. I think this is kind of like an anti-pattern, and where, you know, when you try to create or kind of form everything into a class, into an object, then you get kind of brittle code. For example, check winner, you know, doesn't take in any variable, which is a little bit weird because that means you need a board class in order to check if, you know, check if there's a winner. This feels a little bit wrong to me, where I think check winner should take in the board itself. You know, that makes it I think it's what's called a pure function. Like the input, you have a set of inputs and they always map to the same outputs. This one kind of does the same thing, but check winner should. I feel like this is a little bit of an anti-pattern, but I think the logic works. Yeah, so we're working on this one here. Yeah, you're right. The math here, it's not the same. I just copy and paste it. So diag2 is going to be, yeah, the top right to bottom left, which would be, if you're doing like row, this is going to be row, and then column. In the 3x3, it's going to be row 0, column 2. So this at the beginning should be 0, 2, right? So, and that 0, 2. I think what we're gonna do is just start it at 2 minus I. So go backwards in the column, but go forward in the row. It should be like this. But yeah, that's why testing is important. Let's see. We got another viewer. Hey, I don't know how to say your name, but thanks for joining in. We are building tic-tac-toe, but in a server client architecture, basically multiplayer tic-tac-toe. I don't know how long the stream is going to go on for. I don't even think I'm going to finish it because it's trickier than you think, especially when you're just doing it by hand. Like, I don't think I've coded by hand in the past like 3 years. I haven't needed to. So it's a bit of an exercise. Yeah, I don't think that this is a good solution. I'm not really liking it. It's going to be slow. This is going to be a slow video. But I think if we actually make this in Pydantic, we can... No, I should say... if you guys don't know what Pydantic is, it's a Python library that creates classes that are serializable. Basically, you can turn it to JSON, and then you can turn the JSON back into a Python class. So thanks, avocado. yeah, this is gonna be a slow one. Just here to chill, talk to you guys, and just code. Kind of like studying. Just kind of mostly just bored. Yeah, I don't really think of this as a very informational video. This is just me studying and wanting to chill out with you guys. So we can inherit board from base model, which can then... I'm not liking this, right? Because a tic-tac-toe board shouldn't just be a list, right? It shouldn't just be a list of string, because it's very brittle. For example, it doesn't validate that every row or column needs to be the same size. Or like, yeah, that every list has to be the same size. So that's not validated here. So we want it specifically validated to be 3 by 3, right? And this is where I would ask AI, like, hey, create me a tic-tac-toe Pydantic model, and it would just spit out the answer. But we're trying not to do that because I think that AI is making us pretty horrible devs. Okay, so I'm gonna have to search something up. How do you validate a Pydantic model before creation? And of course, we just get the Google answer, the Google AI answer. Okay. So it looks like it's a function called, is it an after validator? No, it's not. It's a before validator. I guess I should show it, right? That's what I'm looking at. Now the thing is, I understand. Okay, so yeah, I can repeat what Pydantic is. A library that allows you to convert from objects into JSON and then JSON back into objects. So that's basically, the general term for that is called serialization, and it allows us to transport this board across, like, or through plain text. I mean, it could be a binary file, but basically we're gonna convert this board into JSON, and then we could send that board over, like, through the web API. That way, you know, the client can receive the board, you know, because when you're working with like objects and like in Python, there's no simple way of just converting that into text and sending that over the internet, because I'm trying to create this in a way that where I'm keeping in mind what we're going to do in the future, which is creating this into a web application or multiplayer web app. So I think it makes sense to use Pydantic. Now, yeah, this is I'm just overthinking it, because also you don't want to over-engineer your core models, because why, if anyone wanted to use this tic-tac-toe library, if you're going to create one, I don't think that it should rely on Pydantic. Does that make sense? Like, why would you need a dependency for a tic-tac-toe game? Doesn't make sense. So yeah, maybe we don't even need to. Maybe you're right. Maybe why Pydantic? It's a good question to ask. Yeah, maybe we don't use Pydantic, but that's why it's tricky. Like, even something simple, oh, tic-tac-toe, but make it a multiplayer, it's not super easy. So there's multiple different boundaries between like the server and the client. So between the server and the client, you know, you'll have, you know, like a WebSocket, right? That separates the two. Server just, but there are different boundaries within the server as well. So in the server, you're going to have, you know, your API layer, which is going to do the serialization and deserialization of the boards. And then you have your core game logic, which is, it really shouldn't depend on anything. It shouldn't have any dependencies that are in the boundary of the server, if that makes sense. Like, it shouldn't know anything about the server. I think this is the core concept of clean architecture, is that inner layers of your project shouldn't depend on outer layers of the project. So the core layer of our app is this game logic for the board. So I'm actually thinking we'll go back to just core logic, which I think we can use what's called a data class. So we'll look at this Python data class. Yeah, I think we could use a data class. We can look, just overview of what this is. Like, it makes sense in my head what it is, but you know, if I can't really explain it, then you know, what's the point of me even talking about it, right? I guess that's what I'm trying to learn. A data class is just like a lower level representation. I think basically in Python, and forgive me, I'm not very like a low level expert on like programming. I kind of focus on the higher level stuff, but the data classes implement a bunch of I get like helper functions. They're called dunder methods. Like in the initializer method is a dunder method. You know, if you wanted to check the equality of a data class, I think it does it by default already. Like you could say like if a board is equal to another board, but if you were to just create a normal Python class, you'd have to create that. And I think I just show it here. You know, you have your initializer method. And then if you wanted to be able to say something like, let's see, if you have B1 is board, and then you have B2 is equal to board, another board, and you wanted to say like if B1 is equal to B2, you're actually not allowed to. This isn't going to work as expected. And I mean, I could ask you guys questions in the chat, like, what do you think this does? I don't think you guys are really going to be able to interact in real time, but just think about it. This is actually I think this is going to just check reference. So this will return false no matter what, because board or B1 and B2 are just separate instances. So this isn't really an equality check. This is not saying if the board's contents are the same. It's checking, is the reference of the board the same? So like you need to implement like an equal. I think this is just the equality dunder method, which says, okay, you need to pass in like another board, and it should return. I think it should just return true or false. It actually returns none. It's a bit weird. Oh no. Okay, it's saying this is the current one, and it needs to return a boolean. Yeah. Tell me this. I don't know why this also. I don't know why. I think it should also. I think it's because it needs to take in another board. The board is not defined. I don't know. You see what I mean? Like I need to study. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, this return false. It's just a reference check. It basically doesn't do what you want it to do. Which, if you use a data class, it creates, and I don't know why it's using Pydantic data class. I don't want that, right? Like basically I'm trying to say don't rely on any external library for core game logic is what I think. That's the right mindset to have. I mean, it's super, like, we're not gonna rewrite it. It'll basically just be this function here, which doesn't even need to be within the class itself, because you know it's just a function that takes in a board. It just takes in a board, and this returns, you know, in this case is a string. But let's think about what else it could return. We could also have like a and enum. Okay. And I'm pretty sure the enum is built into the Python standard library, so it should work with data classes as well. So you know what? We'll just do this. We'll do this here. You know what? I'm literally using AI. I don't. It's so trying to avoid it, but how? I'm not saying that AI is like bad for you, but you do need some practice sometimes, right? Um, without having it write all the code for you. So let's do that. Was it a class that inherits from? Yeah, it's a class that inherits from enum. This is going to be a piece, right? Is it x okay, you said it equals to. Now I think people just use like numbers here, but what do we do for the none piece? I think we just do none. Does that work? Actually, we should just do 0, 1, and 2. And actually, I think you can assign, you know what, we'll just assign them other values. Space. Ambiguous variable name. This is just, I think it's just saying like, oh, it could be a 0 or it could be an O, which is hard to read. So Rough is telling me you shouldn't use this. It can get confusing. You could do noughts and crosses. No, I am native Hawaiian. Yeah, so I'm not sure what DSA is or MERN. So you're gonna have to expand a little. A little bit about me, I'm more on the generative AI side. So I'm not really a low level programmer, which I don't know. I wish I got a little bit more into like the operating system side, more of the low level programming, but it's not my thing. Okay, now board. I think we could just represent this as a tuple. Like it's just a tuple of like a board is just going to be, it's going to be a tuple of 3 things. Like piece, piece, piece. Right? It's a tuple of pieces. Which I think we could just copy paste it. I think that this is just a better way to represent it, because now our first board was a list of strings, which why are we storing this in a list? Why do I need append and append operations on it? I don't. Also, if it's a list, it can be arbitrary size. So there's no size restriction, right? It could be, 3 things in the first list, 5 things in the second list, and a duplicate reference of the first list in the third list. So there's no boundary. There's no validation, I should say. Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, data structure algorithms. MERN is MongoDB, Express, React, Node, JS. Okay. So you're good at data structures and algorithms, which is the first thing you learn. It's actually the simpler one. Like data structures algorithms, it's much simpler than building full stack building full stack, there's so many more parts. There's so many more parts to it. So like design patterns come into play there. Okay, tuples immutable, so we would need to make a new board class again and again after we move that. Yeah, that's true. And you might think that's a bit of an anti-pattern where, you know, we have to duplicate the data every time, but I think in this case where the data is very small, it actually doesn't matter. It's actually safer this way, because if it's immutable, we know that we can make copies very easily, right? It's just data. It's just a list, or not even a list. It's just storing these enums of X and O's. It's like storing them as a string. There are times, and I'm trying to think of an example where, you know, where it would be better that it's like a pass by reference where we could mutate it. But if you look at like Rust, you know, their philosophy is in Rust, their philosophy is basically, actually no, I shouldn't even talk about Rust. I haven't programmed it with it enough. Mutation is bad. Basically, mutation can be bad, or it can be an anti-pattern, and it's very prone to bugs because, you know, if it can be mutated in a function, that would mean that, you know, if you ran the function again with the same instance of a board, you would get a different result, right? Like, it's prone to errors if you allow for mutation. So just because, you know, we can't really modify a piece in the sense that, you know, we have a reference to it, to an array, and we just swap out an element, it doesn't mean that it's even slower. It's faster. It's faster in some cases. But yeah, now that we have this board here, it's a tuple of pieces, and each piece is either an XO or a none piece. I think this is a better system, a better structure than our previous one. I'll keep it like this. Okay, now we can rewrite this check winner class, which instead of returning a string, it's either gonna be a piece or none, right? And it'll return. Okay, now what do you guys think for this one? Is it an anti-pattern to put none for a piece? Or should we not have a none piece and just say that these could be pieces or none? Think we should have a none piece, or should we separate this? And yeah, this is a slow video for anybody joining in. It's gonna be pretty slow, so you can code on the side or just listen in as you please. Okay, so this here is gonna get a little bit messy, right? Where you have like piece and none. I think there's a way to make a type alias in Python, which I have to go look it up. Okay, we got a question, a statement. I don't think AI is bad if you're a real coder. Just want what you want, do it to do it, and a review is easier for you, isn't it? I don't know if it's just tired or I just don't understand. I don't think AI is bad if you are a real coder, just want what you want to do a review. It is easier for you, isn't it? I'm just tripping. I mean, AI isn't bad. I love it. I've been using it for the past few years, but think about it like this. Like, for example, if you're a basketball player, your coach is going to know a lot about the game, but is your coach going to be good at playing it? Yeah, don't worry about the English. I think I kind of understand what you're saying. When you're relying on AI, you're doing the mental, you're kind of offloading the mental effort into the AI. So, you know, you're not getting that training yourself. which I'm trying to break off that reliance of, you know, if you rely on AI agents too much, then I think that makes you a worse programmer. So that's kind of like, yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a clickbaity title, but yeah, I think it's making us worse devs. We're relying on it too much. And you know, what would happen if you were to, you know, have to sit down and code on your own? You know, are you able to reason through things like you think you can? But yeah, use it though. Use it, but understand that you can't rely on it. If you want to get better, that is. I mean, you can rely on it, and I've seen people vibe code and, you know, make tons of money. It's possible. But do you really love the game? Do you really love programming if you're just going to vibe code through it? Not really. You can vibe code and like things, right? And just you can vibe code and you just like to build things. Yeah, of course. The time you're gaining is tremendous. I could build this I could build this whole thing in 5 minutes. Like really, I could with AI, and I have before. Did I learn anything? No. And you know, I search up and all I get is an AI result, which is, you know, that's not how we did it before. There was no AI search. We'll look at a type alias. Let me think how this works. Is C# a good language to start for backend journey? Sure. I think the C# space is very mature. Can't say I've used it though. But I would say don't stress don't stress the languages too much, rather than the core concepts of, you know, what does a good backend architecture look like? You know, how do you separate boundaries, and how do you validate input and output responses? You know, that how you do it, you know, it's more important than, oh, what language am I going to use to implement it? Which I'm still working on. I'm not the best at it either. Okay, let me read this. Type aliases may be defined by simple variable assignments, which I didn't know. So this, you know, I learned something. You can define a type through simple variable assignment. So what is that gonna be? I don't want to stress it too much. I know, don't get upset with me. I'm just gonna copy and paste it right now. But now I know. What I can do is just like a piece. If you think about it, like if you were to have a physical piece, it's either going to be an X or an O. It's not going to be a nothing. I think the none should be, it's either a piece or it's nothing. It's not, there's no none piece. So what would you call something in here? And then, you know, you get down the semantic route where you're fighting with naming, and that gets you actually nowhere. So let's not fight with names, and let's just create. Okay. So check winner. Yeah, it's either going to turn a piece or nothing when you pass in a board. So if it's an X or if it is a piece, then we know that there is a winner. If it's nothing, then we know there is no winner. So that's how we're going to test it. Now our logic is, I think it pretty much stays the same. Oh, don't tell me I can't iterate through board. thought a tuple. Oh no, I have to do board.board, which I don't like that. Right? I don't. That doesn't look right. You know, ideally, I would like it to just be board, right? When you pass in a board. How would you do that? Does anybody know? Man, my instincts are just telling me to just ask ChatGPT. But that's not what we're here for. Right? That's not what you're here for either, so. Oh, no, no, no. I think I know. We don't even need to make board a data class. It can just be a type, the type itself. Like a board is just something of this shape, right? So why are we using data class when we don't even need it? Tuples already, like I can just say board equals this, right? And now I just say board. Wow, we learned something new. Now we don't even need data classes now. Okay. I think pretty much everything stays the same. Yeah, this logic is kind of messy, but you know, again, we don't care about implementation as much as we do the interface, you know, or how it's structured, right? Like this is, I wouldn't say this is very good, but okay, look, we got somewhere. Yep. You are correct. So yeah, board is now just a type, right? So anything that follows the shape of here, there's going to be tons of different ways you could represent this data, but you know, we'll keep it like this for now. Now this check winner, I think this is what you would call a pure function, right? There's no I don't think there's any internal state, and it just gives us like, okay, you pass in a type, like a data type like this in this shape, it tells you if there's a winner or not. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna write some unit tests for this. Now I know, like, again, I know the different libraries, but do I know how to use them? If I didn't have AI, no way. So in Python, the main testing library is called PyTest, which I'll give me a second. Yeah, let's go private window. So we're gonna have some unit testing. I think that's a good next step. See if our logic is good, because can't really trust ourselves to just look at the code and, you know, see if it's working or not. We should have tests to check it. Okay. So test underscore sample.py. I think what you do is you just append test underscore in front of the name of the file you want to test, and I think it'll automatically set it up for you. And I think you have to do this in a specific test folder. How do you invoke PyTest? Okay, you can run test in a directory. Keyword expression. So yeah, we'll have a test directory for PyTest. Run a specific test within a module. I don't know, maybe I should name this video into like a study with me, because this is not like, it's gonna be a lot of pretty slow for most people. Okay. What I'm worried about is, so if we were to have a test folder, I think it should have the same structure. So it should be core and then models.py. which is not, this is actually not models anymore because it's both models and the game logic, which man, gotta stop overthinking it. And let's just put this in game. Let's delete this so we don't get cluttered. Delete models. Don't rename it. This is raw coding in its finest. Yeah, I just gotta get code. I just gotta get it done, you know. But I want to make sure before I move on, because okay, a lot of times when you're coding, you're like, okay, I know this is wrong. You know, I know this is a little bit wrong, but I'll deal with it later. And then you continue on, and then you're like, yeah, I know this part's a little bit wrong, but it's not that bad. I'll deal with it later. And by the time by the time later comes, you have this huge pile of technical debt that you're like, oh, I should have just made the simple change earlier on. Would have made everything so much easier. So in game.py, now this is what I was saying. I don't really, this is in test, so I actually don't need this. How do I actually get, I think I have to say like import, like from core.game, import check winner. What did I do? I think I deleted it. Oh my gosh, sorry. I'm so tired. So this is in our core here. This is where we're gonna put it. And then it has our check winner. Okay. This is our test. Okay. Now we just say like from core dot game import checkboard check winner. Okay. Now we check out how we use PyTest to, how do we test this? Now I know how to run it. You would just run PyTest and then you could just do /tests. Also, feel free to talk about yourself too. You can tell me a little bit more about you guys. So how to invoke it. How do we write tests? That's what we're looking at. Okay. Yeah, so we'll create like a function called test check underscore winner. And we'll just write, we'll write some tests. We'll assert that given a board, you know, does the right winner come up? So I think we check winner. I don't think it needs a type. It doesn't. So in here we can create some different sample boards like B1. And the nice thing is that I think since we created like the check winner board type is just a type, it's not really a class, we can just define it here. Now we can just test all the simple, and I'll show something actually pretty cool, that now that we typed it out and we're using I'm not sure why it's giving me warnings. Oh man, no, I might actually have to ignore that or change the name. I'm not gonna do that though. Since we're using a linter, it can actually check to make sure that this is a valid, you know, it's a valid board when I pass it into the, actually I can't even do this. When I pass it into check winner, I actually have to make this none. Okay, and I think if I actually do this, doesn't, I thought it should auto format. Okay. We'll assert that check winner of the board is equal to, and okay, let's see what's wrong here. Doesn't match the type. Oh, right. I need to say like piece.x. Import that. 19, yeah, that's, you're able to follow along. It's good. You're born in, or you're kind of it's a little bit weird because when you're 19, that means you grew up in the AI boom, or you probably grew up programming in the AI boom. So if you feel like you're falling behind your peers, but you're still trying to learn, like in this way, like learn by doing, I think you have nothing to worry about. Like really, a lot of people are just going to use AI to get through, get through school if that's what you're if that's what you're actually going to study or what you are studying. Okay, so that worked, but you see how like obviously if we're gonna create like these test cases, this is a bit annoying to create. There is something called a factory, which there could be convenience methods to creating these board types. So if I were to say like create board, there could be different ways to create it. So you could have a I don't know what to name it. I just name it B. It's a string. You can have this return a board type. And how the string is going to be formatted, to create a board, it could be super simple. Like you could just do something like this, and then spaces for nothing, and then like O's, right? And this could be a board, or you could just do like a multi-line string and just you could actually just type it like this. Create a multi-line string, and then you could create a board that way. So then this becomes a little bit simpler. You don't have to do it that way. It's just a convenience method. You can't compare with your peers because they are backed completely by AIs. Their academic or portfolios. Yeah. I mean, if you're saying, oh, if you can't compare, I thought you meant like you think you're not as good as them. But if you mean like you can't compare them because you like everybody's using AI and it's hard to differentiate, then I agree with you. But if you're a better dev, you'll be able to utilize AI even better than somebody who doesn't know about it, right? So I mean, anything that can give you an advantage, but it's gonna take actual real work to get ahead. I'm gonna add PyTest. Okay, so we can just do the test directory. Does it work? Okay, why didn't this work? No test ran. I do have a test. Maybe I just, oh no, I think I actually do need to specify, it's not going to automatically find it unless there's a test underscore. So yeah, a little bit of a PyTest thing, but I do remember that. So, oh, okay, no module named core. So what's happening when I'm running the test? It looks like tests can't find the actual module core, but the language server can find it, right? Like it can find it here. So this is another thing they're gonna come across a lot. Like Why can't Python find this module? So I think what we could do is turn this into I think it's called like a package. I think that's the standard way to do things. If you create this as a package, then it's basically like a standalone package, and then the test can find the packages and find all of your game logic. So again, we have to find that. This is I'm using UV, which is Astral's Python tooling. Astral UV, how to create package. Gosh, it's bright. And we're not gonna use the AI answer. We're gonna do this the harder way. UV build. This is publishing packages. This is not installing running scripts. Installing applications tools. No. Building. Okay, building and publishing. Yeah, it is here. I think. Configuration file. It could be in here as well. There's I don't know if it's called like a workspace. Yeah. So it's here. But normally what you would have is like a SRC folder, and then your Pi project is going to point to the SRC file as like your, I don't know if you call it a module or a workspace. There's so many different names. And then your test will actually remain outside of it, because your testing actually shouldn't have anything to do with the source code. It should be separate. It should be separate, in my opinion. Because you're kind of testing it in the way that the user would use it. So if you're going to test the package, it should be outside. It should be in an environment similar to what the end user is going to use. So I think we need to find a way to package up our app into an SRC folder, and then we can have the tests that run the tests on our package. But yeah, I don't know what it's called. I know what it is, and AI knows what it is, but I don't know what it is, so something I gotta learn. Okay. Projects. Okay, I think we're getting close. I think it's, yeah, project structure and files. So I know what I'm looking for, because it's something with SRC. It's like this. No, these are extension modules. I don't think that's what I'm looking for. Workspaces. No, workspaces are a little bit different. That's like if you had multiple SRC or source folders. So if you were creating like a multi-package project that has different packages within it, then you could use like a workspace that can handle multiple. But you know what? Yeah, so that's the terminology. A workspace, that's a collection of packages. And so what we're looking for is a package. No. See, this is just like installing packages. But yeah, I need more of this, this having to search the documentation. Well, I don't think as you were learning how to program, you had to really do this as much as as we did, because AI would be able to scour the web for you and find it, which I could do. But if you're gonna use tooling, you should at least understand how it's structured, right? Concepts. I think it might be understanding file structure. We were looking at this before, but entry point. It's not entry point. I don't think it's dependencies. It could copying the build system. Is it creating projects? Yeah, so like I should have created this with the dash package flag. You'll see it here, right? Like if you created like the package with the package flag or the UV environment, this is what I'm looking for. So it's like src. You have your package name, which is, I'm just gonna name it tic-tac-toe. So I think I know. It's not gonna be in core anymore. In src, you have a new folder, tic-tac-toe, and then you have your init py, which runs when you import a package. That's what I believe. Here it is. No, build system. Man. You know what I'll do? We'll just initialize as a package. Another one. So we can inspect it. So src tic-tac-toe is initializer. And then this is what I'm looking for. Project scripts, build system. I don't know where it actually says, like, how does it know that it's supposed to point in the src? That's what I'm not sure. Like, how does it know that the package is in this structure? It's not this project script. I don't think this is build either. It's not even saying it. So you know what? Let's just assume we don't need it. Let's assume we can just say like game here. Test would just be, for now we'll just leave it flat structure. See if I can import it here. So if I can say like from, see, I'm not even able to do this. So see, so it can't be resolved, which is what I was saying. Like, how does it know that it's supposed to look in the src? But I didn't even see that in the other, in the one here. I will just copy paste this. Oh man, it's getting wonky. Gotta reinstall the dependent. Actually, I don't even need to reinstall dependencies. Failed or expected a Python module, then okay. I just need the initializer, which I think it runs when you import a package. So you can sync it up, and now I think when I go to the test, oh man, do I have to reset the language server? Could just be that. Okay, that's all I had to do. So if you guys are like new to Python, I think a lot of you guys actually aren't even Python devs, but you guys should be familiar with what a language server is, how they work, what they're used for. So short, LSP is what's known as a language server, and it's a way that you can give your editors like IntelliSense. So how does it know that, like, how does it know to have a red squiggly line under here on their piece? Well, a language server just understands the structure of your code and allows you to get this IntelliSense. It's very powerful. It saves so much time because I don't need to run the code to know that certain parts of my code has errors. But yeah, let's just write this test. Let's run the PyTest. We gotta install it again. And I think this should be a dev, what's like a dev dependency. You should not have PyTest as an actual dependency of your package if you're creating it, because if somebody is downloading your package, you know, they should be safe to assume that you've already tested it. So you shouldn't need that. I think there should be a dev section here. Yeah, so PyTest is now a dev dependency. When other people install your application or install your package, you know, they won't need PyTest installed unless they were actually, you know, trying to expand on it or run the test themselves. But wow, I've never been happier to see a test passed. This is good. It's good. So yeah, this is check winner, and we can run a bunch of other tests as well, like check no winner, test check no winner. I think there's a way in PyTest to name these as well, so you can see here that it just showed like a dot here. It doesn't give me any indication of what function was run. There's no, you know, there's no name here that's saying, oh, I'm testing a specific function here. So, but you see the dot here is actually saying that one test was ran. So if I had two functions here, you can see two dots, which is helpful, but we actually don't know which ones, you know, what functions or what tests were ran. We just know that two ran. I think we could do a little bit more testing. Why not? I mean, it's the boring part, but you can't just want the exciting parts of code, I guess. So we want to assert that the piece is not, or that the piece is none, or the check winner is none, which it should, right? It should return. Oh. So yeah, there's a difference between like double equals and is. I forget what it is. It's okay. It's okay. Well, you know, we'll search it up. We're here to study. Ooh. Double equals and is in Python. 17 years ago in Stack Overflow, and it's still helping me now. Okay, there are two tests for equality. Okay, let's look. If n equals 5, or n equals 5, if n is equal to the value 5, then print yay. If n is 5, print yay. Does this hold true for objects where you would be comparing instances a list, say? No, because we're not comparing content there. So if L is empty and you append a 1, this should return false because this is going to be a separate instance from the first list. Holds true, but this one doesn't. Okay, so maybe is actually the equality check and double equals is a content check in some cases. Equality test value or is test to see if they're the same object. So I actually got it wrong. I got it wrong earlier, but then again, the equal sign, I think it depends on if the whatever class was being written like implemented the double underscore method for equality. So when you run like tests, something like this, the two instances, if they're if you know this double underscore method was implemented, it will use this method to test for equality. So yeah, makes sense. Is this the reference check? Double equals, again, it's dependent on how they implemented the equality. If they didn't implement the double underscore equal, I think it would just default to is. I think the behavior is exactly is if there is no double underscore EQ method. That's how it works. That work. We can check diagonal. This is by the way, this is a bad test. Test name, I should say. It's fine. This is not the best name, but it's okay because we're not worried about semantics right now. We care about structure. Okay, now we want to say if this is equal to piece X. Okay, now do we use is or double equals here? I don't think it should be double equals. Oh, no, sorry, is for the none, but double equals for the piece. That worked. Just copy this and do the diagonal too. Yeah, this is like the boring part of programming, I would say, but you know, I feel much more rewarded when I see like a passing test now, that like I'm confident that my code is working as intended. Whereas if you're using AI, you know, and they don't write a test, I mean, you could prompt it to write a test, but how are you certain that the test that it wrote is not just, you know, it's not a sandbag test. It's not just a test just to say I wrote a test. It's a test that's actually checking the logic. We didn't do a column, so we'll just do a column, keep it consistent. I don't think we need to test all the columns, but I think this should be okay for a test. Ooh, okay. Maybe I wrote the. So when something like this goes wrong, oh no, it's not. Of course. I think it should be double equals for these because I'm checking value, right? And then is for. Wait, does none type have the same? So this isn't. Curious, does none type always have the same reference? Like, is it the same object always? How would we test that? They can, and you know, these like random questions that you have, like, actually can help you to program better. Like, let's do a little test. Can you make an instance of a none class? No, so it can't be called. What is none exactly? If I go to definition, there is no definition. It's just probably a built-in. It's an expression. I don't know, but let's see if I just print none is none. Yeah, so none is none. The double equals. It's gonna say, oh, it's gonna say true, but it said like it's not an error, right? Like you could use a double equals for none, but it's not. It's warning you that it might not give the behavior that you're looking for. So that's what rough is. That's what like a linter, like a rough is the Python linter. That's what linting is for. It's to catch like bugs, or it's more of a, I think it's more of a behavioral check rather than like a strict type checking. But this should be good. Yeah, this is good for a test. So I'm confident right now that this is the way that the game logic should be separated. You know, from where we started off, it was really bad, but you know, I'm trying to guide my instincts to help me get the right answer the first time, rather than needing to, you know, go through this trial and error. Okay. I mean, this is basically it, right? Now, the kind of boring thing about tic-tac-toe is that the rest of it is just game logic. I mean, not even game logic. It's just validation, because I mean, then this is the game logic. Now, when I make a move, I just need to make sure that I'm not placing it on another person's one, or I have to make sure I'm placing it on an empty piece. And in the sense of a client server architecture, I need to make sure that it's my turn when I make a move. So, you know, even I was having a little bit of trouble with this, it's gonna get harder. It's gonna get harder. So I could say, yeah, in the server, there's going to be like core and then like API. That's good. So, you know, we have the core. I don't want to say this isn't even like this is game logic, but it's really just like I just created the shape of the board. We got the model. We got some of the logic down, just like checking if there's a winner or not. That's just one part of like so many. So yeah, we'll actually expand a little bit. You know, there's a check winner. There's a to be like, I know there you need a way to place it, right? You need a way to place a piece, but where does that place occur? At what level? Is that something that the API handles? Like when I call, yeah, when I call like make move on the API, what should the API call? You know, where does that logic live? Actually, the API shouldn't even have like a make move like API endpoint. I think you have a WebSocket. You have a WebSocket API, and then you send a command through WebSocket, like, you know, and the API is listening to that WebSocket to say like, hey, player one wants to make a move. So in the website socket, it's like move, so make a move, and this will have like a shape of like X int Y in. And then I'm going to need a player ID because I need to make sure that I am who I say I am, which is another tricky thing about all this client server, is because you can think about the different ways that people could cheat. So if I was able to find out, actually, I don't even need the ID, right? Because once I open the WebSocket, then it knows that when I communicate through that WebSocket that it has to be from me, or from that specific player. So WebSocket might not even need ID, but the client will need to know their ID to reconnect if they wanted to. So this is a little bit too small. I can make it bigger. The client does need the ID, but I don't need to supply that in the WebSocket. And the piece is going to be a string. It's either X, O, or I could actually just have the string none. Okay. Now, it gets even more complicated because when you make a move, there's so many different responses that the server could respond with. Like it could say, "Oh, not your turn," or invalid move, right? I placed it on another player's on another player's piece, so it would say invalid move, not your turn. What else? It could return an OK status, like, okay, your move is valid. When it's not your turn, the server doesn't have to send you back anything. It just returns you error and then gives you the message. Right? It doesn't need to do anything. But think about it. When I do make a valid move, the server does need to say something here. The server needs to say, okay, and here's the new updated board state. Because again, we're saying like the server is the source of truth here, and when I make a move, I think the server is going to validate that move and then send back the updated board if it's a valid move. What I could do is just send back the like, so instead of having to send back the entire board, I could just send back the, I could just return just the piece that was valid, right? I mean, I could just say okay, and then the client will just keep the board the same, which works. But then what happens when things get out of sync, which is the problems we're gonna have to deal with later, where let's say the client like didn't get the message for some reason, which I think WebSockets, can they fail on sending a message? I'm not sure. But for whatever reason, something happens, the client's board will end up becoming stale, meaning it's not synced up with the actual the true source, or the source of truth. So I think it, like, since the board is relatively small, just send back the entire board, have the player update it when it gets an okay message. I think API will need something like create like a create lobby method. This will just return a, this might be kind of hard to read, but how do I say return? Let's do this. The create will return a lobby ID. But before you actually create a lobby, I think you need to have a player ID. So I think you need another API to create your player, right? So it'll be like create, this would be like create game, and there's like a create player, which again, like, naming is not as important as you think, but you should be still conscious about what you name like your API endpoints, because there are best practices for this as well. I'm not gonna worry about it right now, but I'll worry about it later. Create game, and then create player. So like when I first join, I'm going to, say, hey, it's gonna ask me what's my name. When I click go, then it's gonna hit this create player endpoint, save that player into some kind of in-memory dictionary. We just call it like a dictionary or like a set. And then I think I need to give it my name, and then it'll return another player ID. And then when I create game, I give it my player ID, and then it'll give me a lobby ID. And then when I join, I have to give it player ID, and then a lobby ID. And then what should happen? Now that I'm in the game, I think it should automatically connect me to the WebSocket here. Does that look right? Or does this look wrong to anybody? Now we have to think about where, yeah, like how do I store this data? And I know that some of you guys in the chat were talking about how they're good at like data structures and algorithms, which will come in handy when you're doing this. But knowing your data structures and algorithms aren't going to help you to create an API that's structured well, or to create code that's maintainable. but I think it took way longer than necessary just to create some game logic for the board. But I'm also super tired, so okay. Now I'm thinking that is there going to be like another layer to this? Like, so the core, like, there's no serialization in the core. You know, I think I was talking about Pydantic before. Um, that's gonna happen on the API layer, not in the core like game logic. I'll be honest, client server architecture is new for me, so I can't really comment, but only observe. Yeah, can ask questions, can answer them. But yeah, you just with the client server architecture, it's just more of it's like the boundaries that you need to be aware of, like who owns what. For the game logic, it's what we're building here in the the core game logic has zero dependencies. It doesn't need to know about the API. It doesn't need to know that it's even used to be a multiplayer game. It's agnostic to that. It doesn't matter. Um but your API will need to know about the core, the core module that we built, the core game logic. So the hard part is, the client, creating the server is one part, but it is a two-way street between multiple clients and a server. Hey, yeah, this is Python. We're doing some Python programming. I'm gonna try to create a multiplayer tic-tac-toe game. You're new? Awesome. This is a place I'm basically just studying, writing some Python code, and here to answer questions, hang out. So, but yeah, okay. I think we don't want to overthink it too much right now. I think we'll start working on do I really want to go to the API level yet? Not really. There could be one more layer between the core and the API, which will be like the game loop. Yeah, I think this would be like the game loop. And the game loop is going to just be interacting with the model, because on its own, this game logic does nothing. It's just a set of functions that you need in order to actually create tic-tac-toe, but there's no structure to it. It doesn't know when a player should make a move. It actually doesn't know anything about a player. So I'm trying to think, where should that logic reside? It's okay, bro. I'll watch until you finish. There's no way I'm finishing this today. Okay, so there is an idea of like an orchestrator that's going to, actually handle the game loop, and the API is basically a mirror of that. So I can create a class that has all of these different like functions on it of like, creating a player, creating a game, and then the API just kind of calls that, because the API is in like this like API architecture. Ideally, your API should be very thin. They shouldn't have any game logic within it. So when I call like create player, the logic really shouldn't be in the API. The API is just for input output validation. Like, is the name, when I call like create player on the API, it's going to validate if the name I gave was like a valid name. Like, is the name 5 or more characters? That's the kind of stuff that the API layer should do. So I shouldn't have any game logic here. That should be somewhere else completely. So I'm trying to figure out like, okay, where do I put that logic, and then I can move on to the API. So yeah, I think I was right in thinking that right after, I have the core, like the core model, I do need another layer to handle the game logic. I should say like game loop, event loop. Yeah, I don't want to worry about too much where to put it. I'll just, gosh, I'm gonna rename this. Sorry, I don't know what else to call it, but not game core. And then I'll create a new game. Oh. So this is where my game logic is going to reside. This is where I'm going to have like my make move. I'm going to create a, what was it? Move. Yeah, create player. I think this is where it should be. Create game. Yeah, create game is a little bit of a weird one because this is a game itself. So, this is me doing this is actually creating the game, right? Like me creating an object here is actually creating the game. So I think that should be in the initializer. So this is like the equivalent to the create game. And create player, I'm trying to think like maybe create player should not even be here because I'm thinking the player could be its own like separate class. And then when I create a game, I should already have the two players, like player 1, player 2. Now I don't need to like when I create the initial, or when I call the initializer here, that's when it should actually like create the player. What do I need to create a player? It's going to be a name. And then I think what happens is I do some of the ID creation here, like create random ID. And then once I create the player, I can return that to, let's see, in the API. Yeah, when I create player, it'll call this initializer here, create a random ID, and then return that back. So where do these players go when before they're in a game? It's not even like they're not really connected to a game, but they're technically connected to the server, right? So I guess we could have a lobby, right? I think there should be an idea of a lobby. So yeah, join instead of like join. Yeah, no. You got to think about the language. So there's lobby, which is like anyone who joins the game, or like, yeah, anyone who like, if you create a player, they join the lobby. But when you call the join, this is when you join, and I know I'm getting it mixed up. I think this is when I join the game. So I think create game should not give you a lobby ID, but a game ID. I didn't want to mix up the language, which was kind of confusing me. So we'll change it now. And then, yeah, lobby is where they will basically sit when they're not in a game yet. So when they've called create player but haven't joined a game. Now when we call join, we're gonna give a player ID and a game ID. This is where they're gonna do validation on the API. Say, if I give a wrong player ID or one that doesn't exist, then I should return like, hey, invalid player ID. I'm sure you guys can think of some of the issues that come along with that. You could test a bunch of different player IDs, and then once one hits, you could join as somebody else, which you don't want to do. But we're not here to really make the game like bulletproof, but just get it working. But I think that this is a good way to start it off. Maybe I have another, yeah, I have a lobby as well. A lobby will have a list of games. And I want to say, yeah, thank you guys. If you guys have been here for a while, I've been coding for almost 2 hours, and what did I get done? Game board logic. But I think this is where we're going to make the most progress. So lobby is going to have like another function for join. Gonna have a game ID, a string, and then it'll be player ID, which would say it's a string for now. And this will return like, it should be kind of like a status, right? Maybe I throw exceptions here. Like I have custom exceptions, game not found, player ID doesn't exist, those kind of exceptions. Hey, we can get a little bit into Python exception handling. I think that might be the better way to do it. So, but yeah, lobby I think should have a way to join, and then there's a way to leave as well, right? That makes sense. And this one will have like errors like player not in game. Player doesn't exist, player not in game. There's so many different things we're gonna have to think about. But I think those are the 3 things we really need to worry about, right? Game is going to have a little bit of a more comprehensive functions. To make a move, it needs to know what player is going to make the move. I think it needs to know what row and column it's going to be, so X and Y, and what piece. Let's name it P. Here. Okay, I think this is a good architecture. So the idea would be you have a game. When you make a move, you have to specify the player. Like player 1 could just say, hey, make a move. Player 1 keeps making a move. But if it's not their turn, this function here will just throw exceptions like not your turn. But then what does the game need to keep track of? It needs to keep track of the current player. Like this. And then when you make a move, you would first check if, and this is not P1, this should just be P. I was name a player. Piece. It'll check, let's check something simple like if self dot current player does not equal player, you know, I'll just return none for now. But this would be like throw. Oh no, it's not throw, it's raise. You know, we'll just say the raise exceptions. Wouldn't it be smarter to note player ID for starting player and move number? Yeah, I think that actually may be better. Well, I think you're saying like maybe, is there a reason why you're saying that? Because is it because like, well, yeah, my interface is basically all of them kind of worry or like operate on the ID. But yeah, let me think. And yeah, I think if you're gonna if you ask questions like this, like, oh, wouldn't it be better to do it this way? Those are good questions too. So let me think. Can you give me like your kind of like your initial thoughts on why it would be better to do it that way. Because here, I can just create the equality operator on here, like here. And I don't know why it's object. I think this should be like, this should be player as well. No? Oh no, it's object because it's not technically, player is not technically defined until I think it's like a circular thing. Like if I say player here, then it's trying to look for player, but player hasn't been initialized yet, so I can't find it. So they just leave it as object. And then I'll just do return self.id. So I'm not going to define it here, but I'm going to say, like, for now, just self.id equals 0. Yeah, so again, like, I think what I would have to do is something like this. But then it doesn't give, like, doesn't match. I think if I have to use something like what's called features. No. There's a way to, I know that there's a way to do this without needing the player to be defined. It's a limitation of Python. Easier to maintain. Instead of keeping note of the player object as current player, we could keep players playing and starting number, or starting player, move one number. Yeah, okay, so I think, yeah, you could keep it as ID. The only thing I'm thinking could be an issue is that, for example, in the game, let's say, you know, I have some other functions on player, like some other type of function here, and I wanted to in some function inside a game, I want to call like this other function on the player. I'd first have to get the ID. Like if this was a string, I'd have to go find that player. I'd have to go find the player object anyways. It would be easier to keep track of the game if you're planning to keep logs of all games. Yeah, well, that's what the lobby is for, right? So the lobby is the one that keeps is like the layer above the game. The lobby has a list of games and a list of players. So this is like where, and yeah, I don't know if this is the best way to structure it, but my thinking is like when you create a player, you know, you get put in this players list. The game, this lobby keeps track of all the players. And in the games, you know, some of them have only one player, some of them have both players and are ready to start. I think actually that makes sense. So I think in the lobby, oh no, should it be, okay, this is gonna be a little bit difficult. Where should the start be? Like start game function be? You would think that it's on the game, but then the game would need to know like who hosted, you know, like who is the host of the game, like who created it, because we wouldn't need to find player objects, I guess, because game objects keeps identifier of both players, which can be referenced instead of the entire player object. The game object here, keeps yeah, so yeah, you're saying since it's already here, I mean, all I'm saying is that you'd have to you'd have one extra step, you know. If you keep like ID here, you have to check like, oh, is p1.id equal to the current player ID, right? Then that way you could find the player easily. Like I think what you're saying is like I don't need to look through them all, which you're right, I don't need to look through the entire list of players, which if you did have to, it would be pretty bad because you don't know how many players you're gonna have game instance. Yeah, each instance is gonna have the, like, when it's created, you're saying it already has the two player instances, and yeah, it would have like P1, like self dot P1. Yeah, so well, I'm trying to think. I think this, yeah, I mean, it's worth, I think it is worth it to think about how this should be stored, but if we if we focus too much on like what the type of the variable is and not, the structure, right? I'm trying to think, is this structure good? Is this interface good? The lobby should handle, people joining and leaving, but does the lobby handle when a game starts? Or is it the game that handles when it should start? That is the harder question. Does anyone have thoughts? I'm not sure what else the player class would need other than like a create random ID. But you can think a little bit further. If you wanted to change the name of a player, then it might have a change name function. Yep. So that's that I think I know for sure. The lobby needs to keep track of all the players, including end, start, and join. Okay, so that's where I think you could push back on. Maybe I could push back on. Because okay, so the main idea is you're kind of mixing concerns. The lobby is kind of like a place where players join and games are made, right? But the lobby shouldn't also have the logic on when games should start and when they should end. They're basically there to join and leave. I'm leaning more towards the game knowing when to start and end, right? I could say on the game, I could have a function called isOver. IsOver is going to return a Boolean, which I'll just say false for now. And then what would happen here? Okay, it's gonna be really, I think that's gonna be pretty difficult because, yeah, where do the WebSockets come into play here? Because I have a list of like games and players, but I think that the lobby will have all the functions, but they'll be delegated to the game. Like the logic will actually be in the game rather than being in the lobby, if that makes sense. Like it might do something like this. If I start game ID, I might also need to give the player ID to know if like they were the host, because the other player shouldn't be able to start it if they didn't create it. This shouldn't, maybe games will be a dictionary, right? I think you know what a dictionary is. It should hold like an ID to a string to a game, right? So this, yeah, is that right? Games should be mapped to an ID to a game, and then when you start it, you're gonna check if that exists, and check if game exists. We're going to check if, okay, no, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if, I think this should be here. Check if the game exists in the lobby. And then if it does exist, here you can just do like per game ID. Yeah, so the games is just going to map like an ID to an actual game instance. I think, I don't know if you're confused. Yeah, so this is kind of like a data structure question. So in the dictionary, You know, okay, first it was an array before, which it was like, okay, we're gonna have a list of games, let's make it a list. But when we want to find a game, right? Like let's say I had an array of games and I wanted to find a game by ID. I need to go through, iterate every single element in the array and see if the ID matches the game ID. That's like O of n time complexity. And if you have like a million games, you need to search through all 1 million or all possibly 1 million games to find the correct game. If you have a dictionary, it uses that string to map directly to the game in constant time. So I don't need to do like an array, a lookup. And I know you, maybe I'm getting it wrong, but I think you understand what that is, because I mean you were trying to do depth first search for like Rubik's Cube solving. So okay, let me think. So you're saying like string, or you're asking like what the string is, if it's like the start player ID versus like the game ID. Like the player who started it, so that we don't have to check. Yeah, so that'll work. Your assumption is that a player only has one game, though. That's the assumption you're making when you do it that way. I think, right? Which, yeah, I mean, if a player should only be able to play one game, so I mean, it'll work, right? It'll work. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, the way that I would do it is a little bit of it's like it would just take another step, because I would find if the game exists, and then I would get that game object here, right? Yeah. It would be in a single player. It would work, but is it? Yeah, it would work that way. But think about it this way: like, if I map the ID to the game, once I get the game object here, the game's responsibility is now, I give the game's responsibility to the player, right? Like the game knows who the host is, and it was created. The lobby shouldn't really know about it, right? Now if you create the games in a way that has like the player ID connected to the game, you're kind of making the assumption that like, there's some logic hidden logic within this dictionary that you're giving it. You're giving it, the logic of who hosted the game inside of the lobby, which is like not how you separate concerns. It's very small. It's very small. It could totally work your way. But I think the idea is that the game object itself knows like who the host is. And yeah, I mean, you could be right. Like where does that information get stored? Like, is the lobby the one that determines who's the host of all the games, or does the game itself know about the host? Yeah, it would make joining easier in the lobby, right? But then I'm trying to think, you got to think about what other areas makes it a little bit more difficult or a little less clear. How do you intend to make players join open games? Yeah, so I think you would have, like, the game would say like who's the host, is open. So this way I can loop through all the games, check the ones that are open. Is open, it just means that player 2 is false, right? It's kind of just like, so if the game is open, that is if the player 2 is not defined yet, which I think we got to make that clear here. Which actually, yeah, are we able to create games without a second player? Did we allow creating a game instance without a second player and letting the game handle that logic to make sure that this lobby doesn't have to handle game logic as well? right? Because what I'm trying to think about is, yeah, where does that logic reside? Yeah. I mean, in this case, yeah, it does need player 1 and 2, but it doesn't. But you could just say like player or none. But yeah, I mean, I think that this doesn't really. I don't really like that. I think when you create a game, it should have both players. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay, I will try. Yeah, I will see if I can think of a way to make the lobby handle this, but I'm not sure how that's gonna work. We keep open games in lobby, but as soon as P2 is joined, we no longer keep track of it. Like we don't keep track of the game once the player 2 joins. So let me think. Okay, yeah, so if this was like player 1 ID, if this was player 1 ID, my question to you would be, how do we get player 2 to join? Yeah, I think I see what you're saying. Like you're basically saying like once the other player 2 joins, then all the logic goes back to class. Yeah. What you're saying is right. Like lobby can handle player joining, which is what we're saying. Like find player 1, create that open game. Once player 2 joins, its responsibility is over. Its responsibility is now to is handed over to game. So game is going to make the assumption that player 1 and player 2 are already there. And yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. But I the only thing I'm worried about is in games here, because I'm not, I could be wrong. I don't think I'm like the best at this, but if it's start player ID here, when player 2 wants to join a game, they're going to need to know the player ID to get that game object. Otherwise, we're going to need to loop through all the different games. Right? Yeah. So I'm thinking that this needs to be the game ID. Right? Because the one thing that player 1 and player 2 knows is the game ID. That's what they'll share with each other to join the lobby. When you create a game, it's going to give you the game ID. You're going to give that game ID to a friend. The friend is going to join a lobby instead of creating one with the game ID. It's going to find the current game that's open and it's going to join it. This is going to be so this is a bit weird. So we're going to need a distinction between an open game and a closed game, which I don't really like the idea of that, like having to keep track of that within the lobby. Yeah, so yeah, what I was saying here, like how before like this P2 was required. If we remove P2 from game initializer and then yeah, you can have a join. Yeah. That's what I was saying earlier, where like I could have it none and make it optional, because I'm trying to think of a reason like maybe we want both players to just create a game of both players, right? That's totally possible. And actually maybe a better interface for people using this code, right? Because then they would need to know like after I create this game, I need to make sure that I call join, right? So yeah, this is gonna be a little bit tricky because yeah, join actually there's not gonna be a join actually doesn't have the it's not going to have the code. I don't think the game actually needs to know about the code. It just needs to know the player. Which P2. And it just sets like right, and then this becomes a little bit annoying, but you know what? Let's just not do it here. The reason why I'm not going to do it here is because, or actually, what I can do is just do P1, and yeah, I'll update this later. I know there's some things here that's unneeded. I can delete this. Delete this. Yeah, I would need to do some validation here later, I think, but yeah, that part, the code part is gonna be handled in the lobby. Because I don't think the game needs to know about like, oh, there's a code linked up to this game. Why does it need to know about the code? I don't think it should. But then yeah, I'm trying to think like, where is that code stored then? How does the maybe it does need to know about the code. Man. Now, I would say that like using AI to ask questions like this is much better than just using it to write the code. But I'm gonna try to like think through this myself. Maybe you can like think through it too. And I mean, if I don't know what time it is for you, but don't feel like you have to stay. You don't have to stay if you don't need to. Because I was thinking of game as like, oh no. I think the game should create its code like how the player creates its ID. I think the game creates its ID. Yeah. If it's the first time you think about all of this and you're loving it, like, yeah, we don't need AI. It's making us, I don't want to say it, but it's making us worse devs. Okay. Yeah, I think we're on like opposite side of the world. Crazy. Okay, so I do think that game is going to create its own code. So it's going to be, it's going to create code. Man, this is a little bit hard to do too, because so if it creates its own code, that means this game doesn't know about any of the other games. So it doesn't know if a game has been I'm in Hawaii. In the United States. And where are you from? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know really. I don't know where you are either. But so my thinking is, what happens if a game creates a code that has a duplicate ID? How does it resolve that? If there's a duplicate ID, then nice, from India. I think it's competitive there. Okay. So yeah, what happens if the game creates a code that's already in use? How does it know? a P1 and host identifier. Yeah, like that's a little hack you could do. So you could do P1, do some kind of hackery on P1's ID. Well, the P1 is the host, right? I think that's what you mean. Like, just if you think about it, yeah, like what you could do is you could hash it. You could do like some kind of hash and take the first 5 letters. You know, there could be duplicates, but I think we don't worry about that until we actually scale to needing it, right? Like, you don't want to over engineer something and then, you know, you have like completely unique IDs, you know, that are like 64 characters long, and you have like 2 players. So yeah, you know what, we won't worry about it for now. You're saying CRC32, and I'm guessing that's some kind of yeah, it is a, what is this? Cyclic redundancy check. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. I thought it was some kind of hash, but it's a checksum. No, I'm looking this up, so I don't know. I haven't heard of that, but yeah, you know what? We could just say, like, just create a random code. It doesn't need to be complicated. You know, you gotta get over that overthinking stage 2. Yep, just create code. It'll be simple. So yeah, once you create the game, you'll get a code, and then join, you will need the code and player 2. Oh, there's WiserPi here. From math. Import. No, from random. Let's see, choices. No, choice. Code. To like code chars. So I'm basically gonna create a list of all the possible characters. And you know what we can do to make it easier to read? We will get rid of the O, because that looks like a 0. We'll get rid of the I, because it may look like a 1 depending on the font you're using. And then we won't use a 1. We'll use 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and no 0. Well, because, you know, the code is what you're going to paste into, like, you're going to give to a friend. So you'll want this to be kind of readable. And P1's, the P1's username. Yeah, because yeah, we don't know if they should be, you should have allowed duplicate usernames. Like, people should be able to have the same name. So I'm not going to base it off a username. Usually that can lead to issues down the line, because, you know, people are going to want to use the same username. You know, some people might be lazy and just name themselves user1, and there's going to be so many user1s. So, you know, we want it to be random. We don't want it to be based on a name, because a name has a pattern to it and people could crack it. It's like, just give it a password that you can just type in. You know how, like, if you play a video game and you want to join a lobby, it's usually like some kind of 6-digit random code. Again, like, I could be totally wrong. But let's see. You can go to string. Oh no, we can do this. A little of a Python trick. We'll do six digit. So this will give a 6-digit random code. So I mean, I could test it. We'll just do G equals game. It's missing P1. I was just gonna say it's equal to none. It's gonna give an error, but this is just a linting error. It'll work still. Gosh, I'm making so many mistakes. What's wrong here? Oh. It'll be easier. Oh yeah, it'll be easier to check and we wouldn't have to maintain duplicated checks. I'm trying to think of like what the duplicated check would be. Like, you mean like, I think there should be separation between. I don't like the idea of the game code having to be relying upon the player, something with the player. It feels wrong. I don't know. So, but you know what I mean? Like when you create a game code, it can give you this like easily, you know, there's no mistake. Like it's not going to give you a 0. You're not going to confuse it with an O. You're not going to confuse a 1 with an I. So I think this is a good way to make a code, and you could do the math, see how many different possibilities there are. It's more than enough, I think. If not, you just make it a little bit longer, make it 8 characters, but this will be okay. I think this will be okay for now. So you create a random code. I think pretty much guaranteed you're not gonna have a duplicate. We shouldn't care about it now, but we're aware that it may have a duplicate. Given enough games, given random chance. Okay. Host, current player, player 1 and player 2, and a code. I think this is good so far. Creating it, you need a player to create a game. That makes sense. You can't create a player with create a game with no players. Random 6-digit code, that's fine. When you make a move, if the player is not the current player, yeah, so 800 mil. Yeah, we'll think about it. So, all right, I thought about it. The way you would solve that is you would check here when you create game in the lobby when you start. Or no, actually, it wouldn't be start. It would be like create. Like we need another create function. The way that you would do it is I'll show you. And I think this is actually standard. I don't know though. So create, you give it a player ID, and then the constructor for game is only a player. So we have enough to create a game. Let's say the code collides. The random chance that the code collides. So we do create game. We'll get the code back. Get code. This will just be like game.code. We'll check, does it exist? If it does, remake game. If not, do nothing. Or if not, add it to games. Yeah. If you repeating characters, 1.2 billion. Yeah, I mean it's worth thinking because I mean the 1.2 billion space, even though it's large, if it does collide, then you don't have robust code. Like this would be something that your test would, you would create a test like, oh, what happens when it creates the same code? You create a game that has the same code, which it's a little bit tricky to do here because we have no way to actually specify it, the code, to know if it will be the same. So I think there are some testing patterns that this architecture kind of goes against because it's like a larger system. I think creating these edge cases might be a little bit harder because we're dealing with randomness, right? So it's a little bit harder to test, but this is a perfectly valid, use case. You create a game. If the code already exists, you can just check it in the dictionary. Yeah, in Python you can do if create coding games. That's how you do the create again. And then if you like, you literally just create again. And how often will this happen? The number of games divided by 1.2 billion of a percent, like percent chance, it'll collide. If it happens once, you have one extra if statement to go through. So there's no performance hit there. So this works, and I'm trying to think if, you know what? Yeah, I'll just start writing code. Oh, okay. But create goes with the player ID, right? So I think we need to unify. We need to redefine how we're going to interface with like players. Like how do we get a player given a player ID? I think the lobby should be the one that can do that. The lobby is the one that's like, keeps track of all the players. So there could be a lobby could have a function like get player, give an ID, which is just an extra step. It doesn't seem right. I feel like we should just operate on the player instead, because the ID isn't creating the game, right? It's the actual players creating the game. If that makes sense, right? If you think about it in like the object-oriented sense, the player creates the game, not a string of its ID. I think we're gonna just stick with players for now. So no need to convert between ID and there may be some kind of performance hit because now instead of having an ID, I have a reference to a player and it has to, the memory has to find that object, and sure, small performance hit. But it's actually a worse performance hit if I need to go find the player and I only have the ID. I can do a while loop. While it's game.code is in self.games, which that makes it nice to have the game code as a string. We'll just say game equals game player. This will regenerate the code, right? After this section here, we know that the game code is unique for sure. And we can add it into the dictionary. So self.games index game.code equals game. Yeah, so in the lobby, this only contains logic for creating a game, okay? Or like the logic, like the retry logic, this is lobby stuff. I create a game, but the code isn't unique. I could I could have that logic in here. Like it really doesn't matter. I could create the code in the lobby itself, and then the constructor for the game could take in a code as well. Could argue which is better, but this is fine for now. So join now. You actually do need a game code here. You need a code, you need the ID, and you need the player who's trying to join. We could argue what order these need to be in as well, but I don't think it matters. I'll just put player first. Game ID. Code. Oh, no, sorry. This is not game.code. This is game.id. Ah, wait. Do we identify a game by its code? Or should games have their own ID? I have a feeling you're going to say that we can just identify the game by its ID. Because it's... You might think it's a little bit redundant, right? To have an ID. Could be true. Yeah, I'm thinking code as well. Trying to think. What are the pros and cons if you make games identifiable by their code? Which, I mean, it should be the case that each game has a unique code, and it should be the case that each game has its own ID. Yeah, I don't think you need to really care about IDs once the game is... Wait, by off the lobby class, you mean like started? Really trying to think, because that does change our interface here. Okay, yes, I think we're gonna keep it code. Code is like the secret. It's the way that we know which game we're talking about. It's like the secret, that's shared secret. So the code is a shared secret between the two players. So when you leave a game, you want to also know the code, but I think you also want to know yeah, it would be player and the code. Player and game and the code. I think that makes sense. I mean, yeah, the easiest way would just be like Python already has like a UUID where it's guaranteed. I think it's pretty much guaranteed to be unique. Could do something like that, but then the codes become too long, right? Anytime you want to cut down that code space, like how you just have the uppercase characters, then you have to deal with duplication. But easy fix, yeah. Yeah, we'll just do a code. I think it's better for now. It's easier. Okay. To start the game, we still need to know the player. Make sure that... Well, actually, we don't need to really give the code, right? To start, because we'll just check if the player is the one that is the host. No need code. But you may need a code. Wait, but I don't know why you would need a code to leave, right? Because... Maybe just join, right? You can leave. You don't need to know the code to leave. Just to join. Once you're in it. We'll do self dot games at the code, and we'll just join. Given the player. Okay, thank you. I'm on do not disturb, but I'll accept it. Yeah, maybe we could. But my coding stuff, I'm a bit up in the air with what I do. So I've been making it a thing to not be, can't really make any commitments because I may not be able to. I did recently quit a startup. So I was in an AI startup as a full stack engineer. I didn't get your LinkedIn, by the way. I don't know if you follow the right one. I think we have to handle errors here. Awesome, I think I found you. Yeah, you might have followed the wrong one. I just okay. I think maybe I just didn't get it. But yeah, I just followed you. Oh wait, it's different between following and connecting. I don't know how it works. I don't really use LinkedIn because I didn't get it in the network. Yeah, but keep going though. Keep going though, because it seems like you're on the right track. Keep thinking, keep asking questions, push back. And there may be some people who just, you know, don't want to listen when you push back because of ego, but you don't want to work for those people. Work for somebody who's going to listen. I actually don't have Instagram. I deleted it. Trying to think how else. I mean, I don't really. Oh no, I got it. If you need to message me on anything, I can just connected with you on LinkedIn. I'll actually just send you a message. Yep. awesome. Yeah, try to network, meet people. I didn't really do any networking till the past few months. It did actually hurt me a little bit because right now the job market is gotta know people to be able to getting in to jobs if that's what you're looking for. Yeah, I don't know. I'll probably sleep on this code for now because I already see working it a little bit messy. I don't know if I don't know. I really don't know where the logic for leaving and yeah, if you're just studying, then yeah, don't worry about it too much, but just then yeah, you'll be just fine. Cause yeah, like solving problems, I mean that's what you're getting, that's what you're studying. That's basically CS in a nutshell. But the one thing I can say not to do is don't try to reinvent some of the software best practices that have been already been determined to work. So there's a book that I have, like game programming patterns, if you ever want to go like to do like game programming. You don't want to have to solve those problems that have already been solved for you, right? Try to solve new ones. But like like server, like this architecture problem that I was talking about, like how do we separate API, right? Like the concern for API versus like the core game logic. I think our core game logic is actually pretty good for for what it is. There's validation on the type is basically saying it can only be a 3x3 of either pieces or nothing. And this has 0 dependencies. So it doesn't even depend on any of the Python libraries. You don't need any libraries to use the code. And then you slowly build up upon it. We have another layer here, which is kind of like the orchestrator. It takes in like some of the core game logic and then it orchestrates it. It's kind of like the engine of the game. What happens when each player tries to make a move. This game engine is what says, hey, you can't make a move there. You can't. It's like the moderator of the game. You can't make a move there, or it's not your turn yet. Just wait. That's the responsibility of this layer here in game.py, or this game file. It's the moderator, it's the orchestrator, it's the engine of the game. And I'm putting it here because you do not want it on this API level. That makes sense. You don't want it on the API. The API is supposed to be thin. When you say create player on the API, all it's gonna do is call game.createPlayer or lobby.createPlayer. Or not even yeah, it wouldn't even create here. It would actually call, like, create a new instance of player here. It will get the lobby, and then it will call create with that player that I just created. Give you the code back here in the API. Yeah, when you create game, yeah, this would be code now. It gives you back the code. So it didn't have to create the API layer didn't create the code. Yeah, so I should explain it a little bit differently. It's okay to have a single Python file that's 500 lines long, but because you could have a class, like you could separate these into different files, but then still have spaghetti code where they rely on each other. But the separation doesn't happen from separating files. It's more the separation of the functions and where the data is handled, right? Like nothing's wrong if I were to copy paste core.py into game.py,
There's nothing wrong with that. They're still separated nicely. Um, Separating the files is just another step above it. I know that when I'm in core.py, this is like the core game, like the models file. This is like has no dependencies. This is just where data lives. Game is where the data is actually being manipulated, right? This is where the game is being created. This is where players are created, lobbies or games are joined or left. That's the separation that you care about. It's fine. Like you don't even. It's actually could be better to have a single Python file when you're learning because you don't need to clutter your mind with how to name the files, what to put in them. Because I think I spent like a good 15 minutes talking about what I should put on each of the different files, like what I should name them. Right? That's not productive. If you want to study, have one file and just start coding. You can still have good separation of concerns with a single Python file. You don't have to worry about what to name the files. Your handwritten code looks good, but readability is like 0 for any developer other than me. I'm trying to think of any advice I could give you. I mean, take a look at core.py for example. Check winner is basically self-documenting, right? Because I named the types nicely. Separating files would work wonders for me by restricting you. Yeah, then do it if it's a help. But for readability, you think about it. Look, if I were to like all this code, this is not readable. If I just showed you this, yeah, this is gonna take a minute to understand what it's doing. But think about it. If I were to collapse this code here, like now is it understandable? This way. A piece is an X or an O. A board is a 3x3 rows of pieces or no pieces. Check winner takes in that board and checks the winner of the board and gives you back a piece or nothing. Right? So it's either going to give you back X or O or nothing. So in your head, it's readable. Either X won, O won, or no one won. So readability is not always about this part. I can make the implementation look nice anytime. It's just, I think that's what AI is good. That's what AI is good for. Hey, I could go in ChatGPT, tell this, hey, make this more readable, and now people can understand the logic of what's going on here. Because if len set row is a little bit weird, right? Like, what does a len set of row mean? Well, this is basically in English, get the number of unique elements in the row. If it's only one unique element, I know they're all the same. If they're not empty, if it's not an empty space, then the winner is one of these. I mean, it's the same. I could do 0, 1, or 2. But this doesn't matter. I wouldn't worry about readability too much in the implementation logic, but the interface should be readable. That's what I've been going back and forth on like this entire time. When I make a move, I don't really care how I made the move. I just want to know, the player that's going to make the move, the X and Y coordinate, and the piece that's going to be put there. But you can see it's actually pretty simple. This is create a game. If the code is not, or I could write this a little bit better, but if the code already exists, recreate the game. Like, this is just recreate the game. When the game code is unique, create the game. This is actually like setting the game in memory. So I think this is good. This is good. If you learned something from this stream, I'm glad. And I know there's like a few other people watching. Yeah, thank you guys. I don't know how long I'm gonna stay on because it's 5 a.m. and I haven't slept. But yeah, it's a little bit sad that I couldn't get anything like really showing, like really working. Like, what did I do? PyTest. I have 5 working tests for my game logic, but this needs to be tested as well. And please don't take this as like the best implementation. I'm gonna go ahead and say right now that there are flaws to this, and the main one is gonna be in testing, because with this orchestrator, there are so many different moving parts. You know, how do I create a scenario where the game code is duplicated? That like when I create a game, it'll like that code is already in the inside of the game's array. How do I do that? So, I mean, I'll think about it. I'll probably learn a little bit tomorrow. Maybe I'll stream again in the future. But, yeah, there are downsides that I'm definitely not even aware of right now, and that I actually don't even know how to fix. But just think about it. I think that's the best thing you can do. Because when you're not thinking about it, then you're also not even gonna ask the question. You're not even gonna ask the AI that question, because you don't even think about it. If you at least think about the issues that could occur, you can prompt the AI better. So you don't even have to worry about like, you know, oh, everybody's has AI, like everybody's, you know, it's hard to distinguish between like people's skills, because like you need to be skilled at prompting the AI to use it well, in my opinion, right now. And the only way you're gonna know how to prompt the AI is if you know what it's creating, and you can go ahead and push back on it. So yeah, that's my best advice. Even though we did like, yeah, I appreciate your time too. You've been here talking it up in the chat, and yeah, push back on some of my thoughts. I think you were right in a couple of them. Yeah. But I will say, architecture to me is miles more important than data structure and algorithms. People have already created libraries that do the depth first search for you. They've optimized it already. Yeah, there's already I think there's one just called like GraphX that's already built into GraphLib. I think it's like something like that. There's already graph algorithms already implemented for you out there. It's faster. But yeah, man, it's a rabbit hole that you have to go down to for like even like game development. There's so much more to it than just this, because the problem and like you're gonna be facing later like is gonna be scale. Like, how do you get this to scale towards millions of players? That's where the real like challenges come into place. You can't just store this all in RAM. You know, in some cases you can't do that. You know, you might want to persist this into disk as well. So, oof. I'm still learning. Yeah, so maybe I just stop the coding for a little bit. We can just talk. If probably gonna head out in like 5 minutes. Because yeah, I think there's still a lot of stuff I gotta think about in this one. I think I'll try to stream once in a while. Maybe like I actually might just try to stream every night. And I apologize because I'm not gonna be streaming at these times. I'm probably gonna be streaming at like 8 p.m. my time, which is like 13 hours from now. So you can do the math for you. Actually, no. Some days I may stream in the mornings. I'm not gonna have a set schedule. That's all I say. Yeah, I think I don't know. Are you a fan of any other creators on YouTube? Streamers you've heard of, like Theo, forget his name, the Primogen. I think that's how you say it. Prime time. Also, I don't know the. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's kind of a waste of time. Unless you're learning. I mean, I can spend too much time on YouTube, which it's weird. It's like I'm a YouTuber. I make some videos, but I really don't want to be on it too much either. So I don't know, but you haven't seen any of my actual videos I made? I mean, eventually I think I'll have a little bit more users in here if I figure out what to stream about, but because to be honest, like coding streams like this they really don't do that well. I don't think so. And I think right now I'm just gotta try to build an audience. Yeah, I built a couple of things, some cool stuff with Minecraft. I can talk about it really quick, where I connected a mic, like a Raspberry Pi. I had this like exercise bike where I intercepted the sensor of the exercise bike. I connected it to a Raspberry Pi, and then I connected that to a Minecraft plugin where I was able to control a minecart based on my speed on the exercise bike. And then I connected it to VR, and I was basically running or biking away from an Ender Dragon inside of the minecart, like on the exercise bike in VR. But I don't know. Yeah, if you don't play Minecraft, you might have just went over your head. But and then the Etch a Sketch video is pretty good too, where I made a little robot that could draw images on there too. That was a little bit of a data structures algorithm. Some depth first search. Yeah, well, I think it was a cool video. Even if you don't play Minecraft. I did Cookie Clicker in real life. Oh man, this was a long time ago. This was like 2 years ago. Yeah, if I were to live stream something like this, or like make a video on this, it would definitely be planned out already. I think I'd already have it pretty much coded up, and then I'd like go through the code one more time and just kind of like a tutorial style. But yeah, my channels, I told myself I wouldn't go down the tutorial route, because the truth is, even though I don't, people don't want to believe it, AI is actually a better tutor than majority of the creators on YouTube. So no one's really gonna watch YouTube tutorials unless it's from a creator that they already really like. I mean, I'm rarely watching YouTube tutorials for anything really. It's just asking AI to look up how to use things. This one has been a little bit interesting though. It's a little bit of a throwback because I haven't programmed like this in such a long time. So yeah, I mean, with AI you get that instant feedback loop where you're creating super fast, and you really don't have the time to even look through all the code. So you end up like letting code go that has a lot of technical debt in it. You've tried hardware, currently working on a patent that saves electricity in big commercial buildings. Yeah, that's cool. Important too. Yeah, I think the energy market is actually gonna be one to kind of boom in the AI. So I was applying to some energy jobs, but Yeah, it's kind of hard. Tough competition. A lot of senior devs. Not maybe not senior. I think more junior devs got laid off. Not junior. It's like that mid range, right? I really don't know. But I know that with the layoffs, like it's hard to find those. It's hard to find those jobs. Much harder to find like jobs for like junior devs. Well, yeah, if you got anything else you wanted to talk about before I head out, you can say it now. Be good. I don't think I'm gonna keep this up. Like I'm gonna unlist it after I like done with the live. I'm not gonna keep the lives up on my channel just because I don't think there's a reason to. Oh, yeah, this would be a good one. Fun about me. See my shirt. Let me see if I can show my shirt. So this Team Strong Arms. I don't know if you're familiar with arm wrestling, but I'm a competitive arm wrestler. So I'm training for tournament upcoming this coming Sunday. There's a lot of good arm wrestlers from India. I think one of the Mazahir Saidu was one of them. Really strong guy. I think there's actually a couple others that I'm totally blanking on. There's a girl arm wrestler named Chetna, who's really strong up there. I think she's actually highly ranked Indian arm wrestler. But yeah, so that's a fun thing about me, and about if I was always in the technical field. I mean, I only just graduated like last year from university, and yeah, I mean, in that case, yeah, I've always been in the technical field. Maybe since like 2018, which was like in high school. After high school, I took a year to just code on my own. I was majority technical field, but I don't know if like my hobbies are all technical. I mean, Rubik's cubes aren't really technical, right? I'm trying to think. I did make a video where I did some renovations on my room, so there was a chance that I could go into the trade as well. 24. But yeah, my YouTube channel might actually pivot from now. I don't even think I'm gonna actually be. I might not even stay in the technical field. I think some advice I could give to you is like don't hyper focus on one thing right now. Be flexible. So it's gonna keep you learning things. What else am I interested? You just started photography. I've gotten into photography a little bit. The camera I'm using right now is a Sony ZV-E10 Mark II. It's not a photography camera, but it's more of a videography camera. So yeah, I know how the cameras work and about the different settings like aperture, f-stop, and all those different camera settings. But yeah, nothing. I never got into like film camera. I don't really take that many images, mostly video. But yeah, I've had so many hobbies that I don't know, too many to keep track of. Yeah, I've never heard of that camera model, but I mean, all cameras can do the job, right? As long as you take a picture, as long as you can take an image, it does the job. So, I guess we could do it now. If you want to send me like, yeah, send me a link to portfolio. I'll just take a look. I don't know if you're gonna. I don't know if you want to send it in the chat. I don't even know if it'll allow you to send links, unless you send it on LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm all for work in progresses. I can send in the link of my portfolio as well if you needed. Oh yeah, I forgot. I do have TikTok, but I don't really post there anymore. Are you able to send a link in chat? Okay, I'll check LinkedIn. Yeah, after this one, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I got it on LinkedIn. After this, I will head off, but we'll look at this. Got a little terminal action here. It's pretty cool. Let's see what you got here. Let's see. Let's look at your hobbies. Okay, so you said chess was one of them. I think a chess engine could be a cool one to do. The only thing is like competitive coding. Yeah, it's a cool one. I never really got into that. I never really got into chess either, but for chess engines, they do teach you a lot about like one specific algorithm. I'm pretty sure it's just like you're searching the chess like I don't know, it's like the search space, right? You want to search through the different possibilities and rank which one would lead to the best outcome. The best outcome, assuming the other person is playing well as well. It to me, I mean, it's basically one function, right? You take in a chess state, and it outputs the move to make, the its prediction. Yeah, I think that I don't really know too much about the algorithm, but I know alpha beta pruning is it snips off parts of the search tree that you know aren't going to contain like an optimal solution. I know that I think a lot of chess engines rely on like heuristics, like you want center board strength to be strong, so it'll prioritize moves that attack center board, right? Like obviously you don't want a piece hanging, but you would also want to, I think it's called a fork, like you want to fork your opponents. You want to put them in a position where they have to make difficult choices as well. So, but I mean, I kind of understand the theory behind it, but I don't understand like what you would call it, the algorithms behind it as much. Yep, that's cool. You said you had a, yeah, so your hobbies were chess. I don't know what this is. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's a form of poetry. Yeah, these are good. These are good hobbies to have. This is like, yeah. So you see here, like people ask like, oh, what does poetry have to do with programming? And to be honest, like, yeah, your hobbies. I mean, it would be nice if they kind of coincide with each other, but having a little bit of a wide hobby range, I think, is also kind of interesting as well. I see. Yep, so this is the same thing I did. I didn't get to read it, but this was like ASCII images. I did some of this when I was getting into it. I don't know exactly what this is. I don't know if you, it's probably code generated. I don't know if you heard I don't know if you've heard of it's called a Mandelbrot set. And I rendered that in ASCII as well. I did a video filter that does, you know, that intercepts the webcam stream and then outputs to ASCII. And I could actually go typing real. I see. And I'm gonna assume you did this with using AI, right? Like this is no shame in it, by the way. And if you did it yourself, that's so cool too. But even if you did it with AI, it's still cool. But yeah, so a couple of things with this, and I actually worked with the ASCII images like so much that, yeah, this was an interesting one for me too. So you can see that if you like, let me try to find a good image here. One, it's the dithering, right? Like how do you do different tones? Like how do you it looks like here. Also with certain fonts, usually the height of it is around double the width. So really a pixel is kind of like two characters at once. So what you can do is you can make a whole bunch of different what you call it, like two character combinations. I don't want to do the math. But then you have to find like this kind of brightness value to them or like darkness value to them, which I did with like rendering. I rendered the font out to an image using Pygame, or like OpenCV. You can render out like a font onto like a square. You count all the black pixels, and that becomes like the font's like darkness value. And then you can order them by darkness value, and then you can create like specific ASCII art for specific fonts because fonts don't all have the same. Okay. Yeah. I mean, even if you use an online tool, it's cool to think about the algorithms behind them. Like, how can you get the most detail out of just text, right? Yeah. It's cool. Don't let this like creative thinking die down because, you know, a lot of people are kind of focus on that job, like getting the job, and then the job kind of hammers out of you all this like creativity you get because they got to do things a certain way. Yeah, don't let that die down. Just keep building. Yeah, I've been into like hackathons as well. So this one has been, yeah, some cool stuff. Yep, I've done some. I have some like self-hosting stuff. So I have a home server. I run like Minecraft servers, home automation stuff. I had a GPU in there that was running like local models for offline assistants. Yeah, I was using. I don't think I was using Ollama though. I think I was using llama.cpp. Um, yeah, I could talk about this for hours too. Because I have a MacBook that I was running like local models on as well. I was trying to make a kind of like, yeah. So you say like offline AI system with Jarvis. I was trying to make something similar, but I was trying to make it handheld. Where I was trying to make a local speech to text, and then local AI models, and then local like text to speech models to create that, offline assistant portable one with a Raspberry Pi. But okay, this is good. So you have some understanding of like password encryption, session management from scratch. Separated routes is what I was talking about earlier with the having a clean separated API interface. Persistence. And yeah, and this basically right here I was saying the same thing to request goes through basically validation. Like right at the boundary of the API is like where authentication happens. And then validation happens. And then you check authentication, which could be two different stages. There's authentication and authorization. So authentication is I am who I say I am, and then authorization is now that you know who I am I allowed to perform this action? Do I only have Yeah, I bought the home server when the RAM prices were really low. So I'm lucky. It was actually an old gaming PC. Um yeah, the prices are really bad even here. Yeah, even like as a student, yeah, I can understand that, but you don't need it to, if you have a computer that works, that can code on you'll be okay. Structured response. Yeah, this is good. Okay, well, this was a good little talk. Thanks for keeping me company. I think I'm gonna end the stream here, and yeah, maybe you'll catch me later. I can't really promise when I'd be back, but yep, good job. Keep going. Yeah, I'll just type it in chat just in case. Yep. Thanks for keeping me company. Okay, see you later, man.